Gulf today on NewsX World. On that note, here are the key headlines. The United Nations has voiced serious concern following an Israeli strike on a residential area in southern Beirut. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric has urged all parties to exercise maximum restraint, avoid targeting civilians and respect Lebanon's sovereignty. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has called for revenge following the Israeli airstrike in Beirut that killed Hezbollah's top military commander, Haytham Ali Tadawai. Israeli Defense Minister Katz and IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General A.R. Zamir have clashed over the handling of the 7th October Hamas terror attack. Katz has ordered a reinvestigation of the military's internal review and has frozen promotions for 30 days, prompting Zamir to accuse him of undermining IDF readiness. US Army Secretary Dan Discroll has met with Russian officials in Abu Dhabi as part of the Trump administration's efforts to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. He is also expected to meet Ukrainian officials, although the details remain unclear. The United States is pressing Ukraine to accept an updated peace proposal with Russia after Marco Rubio's meeting with Ukrainian officials in Geneva. A fresh amended peace plan has been drafting, requiring lesser concessions from Ukraine. Ukrainian airstrikes hit Taganrog, damaging 2 apartment buildings, a private home, a college, 2 industrial sites and a kindergarten. Meanwhile, Ukrainian rescuers say that Russian strikes have killed 2 and wounded 6 in Kiev. US President Donald Trump has held a telephonic conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The talks focused on the Ukraine-Russia war, fentanyl, soybeans, and a focal point being Taiwan. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has met Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at Ankara's presidential palace as part of the Asian leaders' 2-day visit to the country. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. The United Nations has expressed serious concern following a deadly Israeli strike on a residential area in southern Beirut. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric has called for all parties involved in the conflict to exercise maximum restraint and avoid further escalation. He's also emphasized that civilians and civilian areas must not be targeted and has reiterated the need to respect Lebanon's territorial integrity and sovereignty. He's also reminded all parties of their obligations under UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which calls for cessation of hostilities. Israel has, in fact, carried out near-daily strikes on Lebanon since the truce, targeting what it says are Hezbollah arms depots, fighters, and efforts by the group to rebuild. Meanwhile, the United Nations continues to push for a peaceful resolution and the protection of civilian lives. Take a look.
We are seriously concerned about the deadly Israeli strike on a residential area in southern Beirut yesterday. We urge all actors to exercise maximum restraint and to avoid any further escalation and remind the parties that civilians in civilian areas must not be targeted. Lebanon's territorial integrity and sovereignty must be respected, and we reiterate our call for the parties to uphold their obligations to maintain a cessation of hostilities and to fully implement Security Council Resolution 1701. And I also want to flag that our special coordinator for Lebanon, Janine Hennis-Plasher, said that she is exercising her good offices to call for de-escalation and encourage the parties to fully uphold their respective obligations under the Security Council Resolution.
With us on the broadcast is Ms. Shruti Das-Gupta, International Affairs expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Of course, these strikes have elicited a lot of reactions. Now, we've just heard what the United Nations has had to say. But coming to the matter at hand, we've seen the frequency of these attacks continue to increase. Initially, they were limited to just southern Lebanon. The Lebanese army has stated that this is a bid by Israel to prevent it from access to these areas. The obligations of the ceasefire deal have not been met. Hezbollah has not disarmed. Neither has Israel withdrawn from the territories that it is occupying in Lebanon. In light of all of this, what sort of message do you think Israel is trying to send through this particular strike in the capital city of the country, not just to the Lebanese authorities, but also to Hezbollah and Iran?
Greetings, Pia. Thank you so much for inviting me. What I understand is that Israel has sent a message that the peace deal can be put in the trash can because neither does the Hezbollah or the Lebanese government have fulfilled their part, and neither has Israel withdrawn, as you have rightly pointed out. So any conversation on a peace deal and keeping the peace or honoring the document is not being honored by the parties involved, and it is just show for the rest of the world. So one, that is there. Hezbollah's commander, second only to Qasim, I believe, was Hayatam Ali, who was downed in this particular attack, and that shows that Israel has deep intel inside Lebanon. They know exactly where they're hitting. No matter the casualties that are happening around it, they are managing to neutralize those elements that are working against the interest of Israel using Lebanese soil. So here, for me, it is the Lebanese government that needs to kind of sit up and take notice. Not that there are moles or information providers or agents inside Lebanon, but that Hezbollah is pretty much active in doing what they can to ensure that peace does not occur in the land of Lebanon or on the borders between Israel and Lebanon. So for me, I think it is important that they notice that although they are going to cry foul over a violation of sovereignty, what the attack accomplished was an assassination of a Lebanese commander, as such, Islamic resistance commander, I believe he's called. And that does not bode well for the security of the nation itself, that they are pretty much at the hands of what the Hezbollah is doing, and they're unable to control the political conversation as well as law and order situation that surrounds the entire Hezbollah question.
Indeed, ma'am. Requesting you to stay on with us because we're tracking updates as far as this particular attack is concerned. We're now learning that Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps has called for revenge after the death of Hezbollah's military commander Haitham Ali Tabtabai, who was killed in the Israeli airstrike in southern Beirut. Tabtabai, who was a senior figure within the Iran-backed group and was the highest-ranking Hezbollah commander to be killed by Israel since the November 2024 ceasefire aimed at halting hostilities between the two sides. Hezbollah has confirmed his death, and a funeral was held in Beirut as well. There were hundreds of supporters of the terror group chanting anti-US and anti-Israel slogans. Meanwhile, Iran has condemned the strike, called it cowardly, and the Revolutionary Guards Corps has emphasized that Hezbollah's right to avenge the death of its fighters is quote-unquote unquestionable. On the other hand, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel will continue to target Hezbollah's military infrastructure to prevent the group from rebuilding its power. Still with us on the broadcast is Ms. Shruti Dasgupta. Ma'am, realistically speaking, what do you make of the efforts of Hezbollah to regroup? There was a sizable blow dealt by the Israelis and the Americans to Iran in the 12-day war that we witnessed earlier this year itself. It's not just their stockpiles that were depleted, but as far as the financial links are concerned, that too has been affected. We've seen a regime change in Syria also ever since the ceasefire was inked last year.
You've made a wonderful connections there, Pia. Exactly. The Syrian regime change ensured that the direct supply line was interrupted by the help of former Al-Qaeda leader Al-Julani, now Al-Shara. So that man sitting in pocket of USA is happy to disrupt the flow of arms at the behest of USA, and that leaves Hezbollah in a very tight situation where money and arms are not easily available, while Israeli strikes continue to deplete their numbers as well as arsenal. But Iran has the Iran war has shown that maybe Iran was not in such a bad position as the world would like to believe it to be, and their resistance continues. The fact that the statement that came out that revenge is obvious, that means we can see further skirmishes, whether military in terms of nature or via guerrilla warfare or via skirmishes through terrorist groups is something to be seen. But there is going to be a retaliation against Israel, and hence peace in the Middle East is not something either Iran, Hezbollah, or even Israel itself is now going to be looking forward to in the coming days. Hezbollah is going to regroup. It has not lost its political will. They were not thrown out of political power of Lebanon, even though the Lebanese government, under US persuasion, tried to put that in force. So Hezbollah continues to have a very strong hold on Lebanese politics as well as military and civil infrastructures. They will continue to try and grow. The country is, of course, not cut off from the rest of the world, so there are no sanctions on it like that. That would, or at least similar to Iran, there are no sanctions on Lebanon. That would kind of cripple Hezbollah as such. But Israel faces another enemy just by another name, the same enemy by another name. Just like how Hamas is now being Islamic Jihad renamed, this is going to be Hezbollah. Of course, it doesn't need to be renamed because it has not been found guilty and has not lost international conversations as yet. So it is going to continue under Hezbollah and continue to regroup. Once it does lose complete international favor, or whether it's when it starts looking bad to be called Hezbollah, they'll find another name to go by it. So Israel will continue to face a lot of aggression in the Middle East just by mere existence.
Ma'am, requesting you to stay put with us. We're tracking some updates this time from Israel itself. We're now learning that tensions are escalating in Israel's defense establishment as Defense Minister Katz and IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir have clashed over the handling of the 7th October 2023 Hamas terror attack. Katz has ordered a reinvestigation of the military's internal review and has frozen promotions for 30 days, prompting Zamir to accuse the minister of undermining the IDF's readiness. The Lieutenant General has defended the findings of a report by Major General Sami Turgeman, which held officers accountable for failures, and has stated that any further review should be conducted by an independent committee. Meanwhile, Israel Katz has insisted that the defense establishment comptroller will issue recommendations within 30 days before decisions on appointments are finalized. This public dispute has now drawn political attention as well, with Prime Minister Netanyahu expected to meet both the leaders. Critics, including former defense ministers, have warned that the feud risks politicizing the army and harming military effectiveness. Stay with us. The broadcast is Ms. Shruti Dasgupta. I wanted to understand from you, how do you read into this tiff? It's not just behind closed doors, it's quite public, the accusations that are being traded. What are the implications of this?
Well, the first one being the last line of your report, that there is a politicization of the IDF itself. It is not remaining completely apolitical in nature and a military arm of Israel. It is being influenced by political actors themselves. Of course, the blame game is going to happen because that's what the world has been asking, with so many eyes and so many guns pointed at the borders. How did the October 7th attack happen in such a large scale, causing so much damage? Who took their eye off the ball? And whoever ends up holding this hot potato will find themselves not just shamed by the world, but ridiculed by their own people, despite the fact that they might have been doing their duty. So the blame game shall continue. They will want to find somebody to hold responsible and accountable for the deaths that happened, because internal military failure was definitely part of what the October 7th attack was accomplished at such a level. So there is going to be a lot of finger pointing. Internal fractures within the IDF is not good for the military itself, because it is already under a lot of strain. In the past few days, we've seen a lot of commanders come out and say they no longer can hold on to such a high level of military actions year after year, month after month. So military itself is under strain. With such kind of accusations going back and forth, it kind of puts the low morale of the army a little lower than it should be. And faith in the upper echelons of the military structure seems to be on the shaky ground. So hopefully they will find a lesser public way of addressing their problems and find a way to knit the whole that was there in their security infrastructure that led to an attack which has led to a 2-year war with Gaza and Palestine.
Indeed, ma'am. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, putting all of that into context and sharing your perspective with our viewers. On that note, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that Palestinian militant group Islamic Jihad has stated that it found the body of one of the last 3 hostages held in Gaza. The armed wing, the Al-Quds Brigades, has stated that the body was recovered during searches in areas controlled by the Israeli army in central Gaza. Sources now say that the remains belong to one of the final 3 hostages still held within the Gaza Strip. Now, at the start of the US brokered ceasefire on the 10th of October, there were about 20 living hostages and 28 bodies of deceased captives that were held. Since then, Hamas has released all living hostages and have returned 25 bodies, while Israel released nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and returned hundreds of bodies in line with the agreement. In other news, residents in Gaza City's Sujaya neighborhood woke to find large yellow concrete blocks placed outside their homes, marking what appears to be the withdrawal line of Israeli troops. Ibrahim Farhat, one of the residents, has stated that the block outside his house had been moved from its previous location near a local pharmacy, less than a kilometer away. Several neighbors now reported similar blocks appearing overnight, which they believe were placed by Israeli forces. Now, the purpose of the barriers and these blocks has not been confirmed. Let's listen into what some of the residents had to say.
اتفاجئنا الليله الساعه 2 ونص انه الحجر الاصفر حسب مزاج الضابط تبعه ما له علاقه باتفاقيه ترامب ولا لها علاقه بكل المعاهدات، نقل الحجر الاصفر من اخر شارع الغزالي جابه هان. طب هو كان غاد، يعني في اتفاقيه جديده.
كان معاهم ريبوتات وكانت الدبابه هان وكان معاهم ونش وحطوا الحجر الاصفر هذا المكعب اللي تو صورته انت، وهي زي ما انت شايف قاعدين بنلملم في عزالنا عشان نطلع. طب احنا وين نروح؟ لمين نشكي؟ لمين نحكي؟
الليلة تفاجأنا لما سمعنا صوت الدبابات وبحطوا المكعب الأصفر، والصبح لما طلعت أنا وجوزي تفاجأنا كثير. يعني هذا خطر علينا كثير.
هي البلطان المكعب الأصفر بقى لصيدلية الأقصى وقاعدين وهذا، وبقى يعني بقى بعيد عنا بالأول، وبقى إطلاق النار يجي على دارنا، إطلاق متفجر بقى يعني بعيد تقريبا كيلو عن دارنا. والجرافة خبطت الطغرة هذا ورجعت الطغرة هذا كمان، الكباش والباقي قدموا هيجي أثر جنازير الدبابات لما بدوا يقدموا ها.
With us on the broadcast is Mr. Sasha Machta, political commentator, joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Up until now, it's all conjectures because it's not really been confirmed what is the purpose of these blocks, why have they been placed, how have they been placed as well. It's all speculation on the ground. How do you read into what is taking place?
So this is not just a new phenomenon as of yesterday. It's already been a few weeks ago that the IDF started placing yellow boxes around the border of the yellow line to clearly demarcate and to clearly have a visible marker of where the yellow line commences, where it begins. It is important that this yellow line and that this division in Gaza is clearly seen right now so that both the IDF soldiers know exactly where their limits are, and also Gazan civilians know as well, because crossing over to the yellow side could be dangerous, because it's been assumed until now that an incursion is an attack on the soldiers. We've seen many Hamas terrorists that have continuously broken the ceasefire and crossed the line and tried to shoot IDF troops. So this is a clear marker of where this line begins, and hopefully there will be no confusion. No Gazan civilians will mistakenly cross and enter danger, and that those that do cross, Hamas terrorists, will be able to be clearly identified. So this is just one way of clearly showing where these limits are.
Indeed. And I wanted to digress a little bit over here. Of course, I was not able to address one of the crucial pieces of information that we've been tracking with you earlier, but I'd like to address it now. The stiff that is going on between Israel Katz and the chief of the IDF, Lieutenant General Air Zamir. How are you assessing what is taking place? Because the dispute is not behind closed doors, it's very public. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is now slated to hold meetings as well. It's become that serious. Some people are claiming that this feud risks politicizing the army and also risks harming the effectiveness of how the IDF operates at large.
Yeah, so clearly nothing, unfortunately, in Israel happens behind closed doors. All disputes and discussions and disagreements always, for some reason, need to be made public and politicized. Of course, the generals and those high-up ranking commanders that were found responsible by Zamir and by the report that he ordered on October 7th on the probe, it is necessary that they will be removed from their positions as they have been. This was the largest failure in the history of the state of Israel, the largest military failure that cost the lives of so many and could have cost thousands of more lives. It took 5 to 6 hours for the IDF even to arrive and to neutralize the situation. So this was a massive failure, a catastrophe for the IDF. And what Zamir is doing right now is sort of cleaning the army from those officials that had brought this mentality of passivity and of believing that Hamas was deterred. They had totally misread the situation, and that had led to the loss of and the bloodshed of thousands of Israelis. So the problem is that between Zamir and Katz, there's a sort of game for who is taking the authority, for who has the authority, for who should be taking responsibility. It's also challenging for Israel Katz to continue with this, especially for Netanyahu to get more involved, because Zamir is such a popular figure in Israel after his handling of the Iran war and also the Gaza ceasefire. His popularity is off the charts, and it might not be a good move politically for Netanyahu to continue going in this direction and challenge Zamir. So the situation is messy, especially for someone looking from abroad. But we hope that at least the IDF soldiers, the generals and commanders responsible for the failure will meet justice.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, shedding light on all of these crucial developments. On that note, we're shifting focus to further updates we're tracking from the Middle East. We're now learning that U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll met with Russian officials in Abu Dhabi as part of the Trump administration's ongoing effort to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Driscoll is also expected to meet Ukrainian officials, although the details of the delegation remains unclear. The talks follow U.S. and Ukrainian efforts to narrow differences over a peace plan that was chalked out earlier. The latest U.S. proposal is a 28-point plan. It alarmed Kiev and its European allies as it required Ukraine to cede its territory, limit its military and bar NATO membership ambitions as well. These conditions were seen as heavily favoring Moscow. Now, the sudden U.S. push adds pressure on President Zelensky. He's, of course, facing a corruption scandal at home. There are battlefield gains that the Russians are making on the front lines as well. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on Gulf Today. We will continue to track all of these updates very, very closely.